Hey gang, and welcome to Two Blokes from Down Under. My name is Simon Guthrie and I'm here with my co-host Ben Ennis. How are you, Benny?
I'm fantastic, Simon, and you?
Very well, thank you. Got an interesting guest today, so going to do a bit of an intro and we'll see if we can get through it. From the small Aussie Rules Football Club at Kingupna to the co-captain of the Murray Bushrangers to the big smoke of AFL, playing alongside some of the biggest names in the game like James Hird, Matthew Lloyd and Joe Mercedes, and then spending the next 14 years playing country and suburban football and claiming 11 premierships as a player and then a coach. Not only has football been such a big part of his life, he also has a wife and 4 kids that nowadays keeps him on his toes and has forged a very successful career in HR. Welcome to Two Blokes from Down Under, Marc Bullen.
Thanks, Simon, and thanks, Benny, for having me.
Over to you, Simon.
Oh, gee, here we go.
You said you were starting this.
All right, so for those of you who don't know, me and Marc go back way back. We're actually first cousins. His mum and my mum are sisters, so it's known each other for a long time. So it's I'll know most of the stuff on today, but I look forward to actually learning some stuff. So
I like it.
What do you got for him, mate? So
This is flowing very well.
it is.
Well, all right, Mark. Let's because I don't know you. Let's go back to the start, mate. Where'd you actually grow up? Where are you from?
I'm obviously a Shepparton boy, but prior to Shepparton, I was born and raised in a lovely country town down south in Gippsland, Terralgan.
Yep.
Spent there in grade 2. We relocated up to Shepparton after my father started working up here to put food on the table, sort of doing 2 jobs while working like a lot of families did, I suppose.
Yep.
When you're trying to support a young family, he'd work during the day and then work during the night in the cannery. So
Okay.
Mum was a nurse, Dad was a painter.
Yep. House painter.
House painter. So he worked long arduous hours, I suppose. But also always made sure that he put bread and milk on the table for me and my sister. So after grade 2 or so, what was I, probably 5 or 6 years old, moved up to Shepparton and lived in the north side of Shep, I suppose. So
Yeah.
I was a North Shepparton boy, but had some family around at the time, and I really appreciated everything growing up in Shepparton. It was a fantastic place to grow up, and always look back now fondly to the people that are still here that I could, from time to time get to see. I suppose it's a terrific place to grow up as a kid, and teaches you a lot of things about life, I suppose.
Yeah, it certainly changed Shepparton though.
It has
over the years. She's a bit bigger.
Oh, it's huge. I always judge country towns, or by the amount of McDonald's or KFCs you have.
We're probably the biggest then.
We're getting more, aren't we?
Yeah, so you got one back. There was only one down at South Shep when I was growing up, and then obviously there's one in North Shep. I think there's one in Central. Is there as well?
No, Central's gone now, but there's 3 KFCs now, and now one in McDonald's in Marupna, one in KFC
Marupna.
coming to Marupna too.
There wasn't one in Marupna when I was growing up. So I always judge a town's size by McDonald's and KFCs, and it's a growing town.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. Yeah. So where'd you head to high school then in Shep?
Yeah, so went to St Brendan's at primary school, so started there, and then obviously transitioned to Notre Dame. Yep. And at that stage when I was growing up, I think Notre Dame had the one campus. Now I think they've got 2 or 3, so you can go by the size of the town growing, I suppose. So I suppose I was, not that I was the most academic sort of guy. I always had my football in the background and wanting to make sure that was my number one priority. And looking back, I had some fond memories of high school for sure. I've got some lifelong friends that a lot of people don't get to achieve when they leave or go down to Melbourne or Metro or move up into Queensland. So we've got some, both my wife and myself have got some close friends from school, which we still cherish, I suppose.
Yeah, you stay in contact with and all that sort of stuff, yeah.
Speaking of your wife, when did you meet your wife?
So she was lucky enough to meet me when I was growing up. I think we've been going out for a long period of time. I think I kept her waiting 10 years before I proposed to her to get married. So, I'm not too sure. Year 9, I think, roughly around that time when I was sort
high
of
school sweethearts.
Yeah,
High
sweethearts.
14 or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, nice and early. But like I said, mate, she's got the good bus ticket, and she doesn't want to get rid of it.
I like it. Did you play any other sports in high school, Mark, or was it just footy?
No, I played all sports. Just traditionally played all sports. So during winter, obviously my main focus was football. Winter and summer, I was heavily involved in basketball up until around about age 16, and then I was never probably as good as in cricket as what I was in those other two sports. But I definitely played that up until sort of maybe 15 or 16 when you had to probably make that decision.
Yeah, get a bit more serious on one, and footy was obviously the standout.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Yeah, nice. What ages Bushies start?
You didn't do under 16s, Bushy? Was it under 16s back then, or it was?
Yeah. So that would have been about when you were making that decision. Then, yep.
Yeah. So back then, I played 3 years of Bush Rangers, so I played as a bottom age. And I think first year I went there, the Bushies won the Premiership. That was when we had types of. I think John Shields was coaching, captaining them at the stage. Murray Vance got drafted. Derek Murray, those type of guys that
was it Josh Fraser as well that year?
Yeah, Fraser would have played. Ryan Houlihan would have played. So that's a really good side. But I only played 4 or 5 games that year. And then the following 2 years, I played pretty much every game, but I captained them in my last year with Craig Edney. And we didn't. I think we maybe played 2 prelims when we probably had a great team to win it, but we didn't win it.
Cool. Where did you, you mentioned basketball, what did you play, under 14s, under 15s? Where, what stage did you get to, representative and stuff?
Yeah, I played, I represented Victoria a couple of years, pretty much every year from sort of under 13s through to under 16. So back then you played, it was either Country Victoria or Metro Victoria, and I represented Country Victoria, obviously. So you played in the Australian Championships up in Albury 2 or 3 years in a row, I think. But looking back now, I was probably a lot taller, a lot bigger. I developed very early from probably a teenager, I suppose. And these day and age, a 6 foot point guard, you get gobbled up pretty quickly. Yeah. So you've got to be your 6'8" type things. But yeah, I've really enjoyed basketball. I love going away, and my daughters are starting to go through that now. So playing rep basketball and going away for your country meets in Bendigo and Geelong and those type of things, even though it chews at your pocket a fair bit, but you look back in fond memories and make sure that they get the same opportunities because my parents gave them to me. So
same thing, yeah. So how old are your kids now?
All under 12. So Addison's 12, Macy's 10, Jada's 9, and Beckham, my young bloke, is 6. Just turned 6, yeah.
They're all sports mad?
No, not all sports mad. Like Addison, they'll play sports. No one's as mad as sport as what Beckham is. The youngest one's just nuts on everything. But Macy is playing rep basketball at the moment. Addie just plays. She's not really a bit of an introvert, Addie, a bit like her mother. And I coach Macy and Jada. I coached them yesterday, and they seem to enjoy it a lot. And then Beckham's only just coming through, so he's got a long future ahead of him. But he's showing he might be the new Bruce McAvaney rather than being a superstar footballer. But he's pretty good at everything he's doing at the moment. But he's only 6 years old.
Yep. It will get busy when he gets a little bit older.
It'll get busier then. If he likes every sport, he'll be, Dad, take me here, Dad, take me there. So what's the plans with the kids, mate? Did you plan to coach them?
Yeah, I want to support them, I suppose. So like I said to you before, I've got a long way to go, but I definitely help out when I need to on a Saturday morning. So I take Beckham, obviously, to footy or soccer or Aussie hoops or whatever he's doing now, and then the girls I'll coach on Sunday or Saturday, whenever. I'm happy to put my hand up and help out in kids sports for sure. I got asked to coach under 19s footy team during the week, and I said, not for a few years, mate. So
bit much going on.
Yeah, too much going on.
Well, let's go back a little bit to your footy. So when did your footy started off? When you were under 12s, or what did you play back then? Yeah,
I would have. Obviously started at school and primary school, but I suppose the most successful thing I did coming in obviously in primary school was I made the Victorian schoolboys team. So we played in the national championships in '93, I think, and that was up in Darwin. So from a personnel point of view, from people that the people listening to this might remember was Jason Cloak played at centre half forward, who was a good player, and then Damien Cupido, he played as a full forward. I can't remember what he did back then, but he was electrifying junior. Robert Murphy, so Bob Murphy he probably 300 games of AFL. He played on the half-back flank, and he was built. He was probably 12 kilos wringing wet back then.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But he was an absolute star. And then obviously myself, I think Blake Campbell made it from memory. I think he lives around here.
Yeah, he's still here.
Ship, yeah.
Blakey, I think did Blakey? Yeah, I can't remember.
Blake or Brad?
Yeah, Blake's my age. So
it'll be Blake. Yeah.
And you look now that like there's an article in the AFL website, and I think they just went through all the key players, and they're just guns, every single one coming through them. So
yeah.
All right, so that was primary school.
Mm.
And then you went to... Did you play Force? You did play Force out of Kingupna.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you go there?
Yeah, good. We had a battle. I don't think we ever won a flag in under 14s. I think Shep East got us, or Mansfield got us, and Shep East had some terrific players as juniors back then. I think we had a grand final against Mansfield maybe. And Mansfield had Josh Fraser, who was back then, he was 6'4". As under 14, so...
Bit like Stephen King. He used to play a Kingupna. He was about 6'4" or something.
So I remember I tell the kids all the time that I kicked 115 goals in the under 14s one year, but I still didn't win the bloody league medal and the goal kicking because Josh Fraser kicked 130.
What did he kick? 130?
130, yeah.
Wow. I knew you kicked a ton. That's still a fair effort in under 14s, isn't it? So
yeah. So
it's crazy.
All right. And then where to? Did you play school footy?
Yeah, you played footy on Saturday morning, Sunday morning. So you played under 14. So Force at Kingupna. So getting in the bus at 7 in the morning and driving to Bonnie Doon and playing in the fog. And then the following day you'd play, out at Echuca playing under 14s. And we had great sides at Notre Dame. Probably Notre Dame had a standout club back then. And we won, definitely won under 14s and under 16s. Maybe twice in under 16s from memory. But, yeah, that was enjoyable times.
When did you first transition into senior football?
When I was playing at Kingupna. So I think I might have played some under 17s back then, but I was young. So it was under third. So I went from fourth to thirds, but I made my debut for Kingupna as a fifth, just turned 15 up in, I remember the day up in Cobram, and I kicked 3 on debut.
3?
Nice.
Yeah.
As a 15-year-old?
Yeah, and we got beat that day, I think. But yeah, we played that's when I transitioned, obviously playing senior football. We had a terrific Kingupna team. And that same year, we played in the grand final, and we played Cobram, and we got beat in the grand final. So that's the only senior flag that I've ever lost.
Did you play a game the year before under Max Tanner?
No, I don't think so.
You didn't? It was that year, was it?
Yeah, I think it was that year.
I thought you played the year before. I thought you were actually 14 myself. My memory's probably not as good as yours.
Well, it's going back a while, but yeah, 14 or 15. Definitely played. I remember the game. It was at, I think you might be right, actually, Songs. I remember Xavier Tanner coaching me, so it might have been that year.
Because the grand final you played over at Toke.
Then we had Gurry. You're right.
Yeah, Mick Gurry or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I think you are right. So I did. Yeah, it would have been 14.
Yeah.
So at 15, you went into the seniors, and how big were you, and how much did you weigh, roughly?
I was a big boy. I've still got a photo where I had peroxide blonde hair.
We've all got them.
Yeah. I would have been, 180 centimetres. So just short of 6 foot, or probably even 6 foot.
Yep.
But I was well developed. So.
Yeah. So you're big in size as well, then too.
Yeah.
I always remember Mark as a kid. He used to go swimming and stuff as an 8-year-old, and he'd just be ripped.
Yeah.
All like at 8, 9 years old. So certainly developed young, but always had that physique and everything.
Yep. So you stayed in the seniors then, or you come in and out, or?
No, mate. Stayed in the seniors.
That was a silly question, wasn't it? Really? Hey, got to ask.
So what happened from there? You went seniors at Kingupna, played in the grand final. Next year, were you playing Bush Rangers that year?
I was on the Bush Rangers list. I would have been, but that would have been the year that, my third year of Bush Rangers, I'd imagine. So
yeah. So the following year, you just went straight to the Bush Rangers.
Yeah, straight to the Bush Rangers. Yeah. Stayed there up until to my draft year, so 2000.
So Bushrangers obviously is, most people know what Bushrangers is. It's the under-18 side that plays in the TAC Cup. That who was the local guys that you actually played with in that? Was there any standouts or?
Yeah, so the Bushrangers are divided between obviously the Golden Valley region and the Ovens and Murray region. So we always used to compete against O&M boys because you come from playing schoolboys at under 15 level through, and then they'd get a bus from Albury, we'd get a bus from Shep on a Wednesday night. You always race to get into the rooms quickly and get out to the training on the training tracks because Kelly O'Donnell would always be on our backsides about not wasting time and precious time and valuable times where you can practice on your craft. So we had some great players back then. Myself, Lukey Dearling was a really good player back then, early doors.
He's a local Shep boy.
Yeah. Sammy Parker was playing some really good football back then. I'm trying to think who else was a Golden Valley boy. Some of the O&M boys went on to have some really good country football careers. So Craig Edney was a fantastic player. He co-captained with me. He was a fantastic player. He'd probably go down as one of the best country footballers that's ever played the game.
He was just a little small, Craig, wasn't he? He got drafted by Richmond though, didn't he?
Yeah, he got drafted, but
played a couple of games. Or something
in this day, he was a fantastic player. Probably, he was courageous. He was terrific over his head, goal kicker. Win 30, 40 possessions every game. So he was one of the best players to play country footy. Blakey Campbell was playing that year. I think we got 8 people drafted. So. Chrissy Hyde, he was a sort of a Murray boy. He was a great player who ended up having a really good career post-footy at Albury Footy Club. Sean O'Keefe, he got drafted. He was great. And then once we started playing, we had Justin Kazitsky come and play. And he got drafted. He got taken number 2 in our draft year, and he had a fantastic career as well. So we got 8 drafted out of our final Bushrangers year. And prior to that, you had your Ryan Houlihan's, Josh Frazers, Matty Schurz. So there's some terrific players running around that went on to play league footy.
Robbie Campbell went that year too, is that right?
Yeah, Robbie was a year younger than all of us. So
played Hawthorn 08 Premiership.
Yeah, he was a year younger. He was a Corowa boy. Robbie Forster Knight was another one that he got drafted in 99-2000. So, yeah, we had some really good players coming out of it. And we probably had a benchmark year that I think it was 8 was the record, and then I think it got overtaken by your Sandringhams and your Calder's in the years after that.
Very good. You got drafted, when did you, 2000 was your draft?
2000 was the draft year, so I didn't really, I played some good footy, but I probably only really, I believe the only reason I got drafted was I made the Vic Country teams. I made the Vic Country teams 2 years in a row in under 16s. So playing with Jonathan Brown, Cameron Ling, unbelievable, really good players. And then I made it again 2 years in a row, so bottom age under 18s. And I really didn't do a heap of in the bottom age year. But then the following year in the under 18s, in my top age year, I got dropped for the first game. But I didn't get selected, and I obviously pretty pissed off about that. And then I come out, had a game against South Australia, and had mid-20s, probably kicked 1 or 2, played well. And the final game, played really well again. And then we had the grand final against Vic Metro, and I got best on ground, and that's how I believe I got drafted. So
that was the highlights, always got wrote in the books when your name come up, that had an outstanding grand final game and in that one.
Yeah,
so.
I think I played at half forward, and I kicked 2 or 3 goals. I think I had 35 possessions, and I'll probably just the pressure to perform, and also the disappointment of missing out on that first game. I said, well, I want to really show you blokes who means business, and then I think that's the reason why I played at half forward, half back, and I didn't play a lot of midfield minutes, and to have 35 and kick 3 at half forward was pretty good, I thought. So
getting around.
So 2000 was the moment. What's it like to be when your name's read out?
Like I said, I didn't actually. I always hoped that I'd get drafted, but I didn't actually. I don't go into some of the didn't go into some kids know they're going to draft it. Like young Josh Rochelle this year, he knows he's going to get drafted. So his thoughts might be a little bit different to mine, but you're still nervous and it's unpredictable because at the end of the day, you could end up moving and packing bags within 48 hours and moving to Fremantle or to the Gold Coast or to Brisbane. So, but I remember, I think it was just a relief back when I got drafted. I wanted to obviously be, happy about it and show that I'm proud of my family that supported me to get to that stage, I suppose. So, and then when you get drafted, unfortunately, that's the easy part. So you've got to really put, your head down and your bum up and work even harder than what you ever have to get to that level, I suppose. So
it's when it all starts.
Yeah, but like I said, you celebrate it. It's a lifelong goal of yours. It's a dream. And once your name does get read out, it's it's like your heart. It's like you're on a roller coaster when you're coming down and it drops, and then you realise, shit, it's real.
Well, it's pretty much every kid's dream, isn't it? When you're playing that much footy as a youngster, and everyone dreams about that one day or whatnot. It doesn't matter what sport you play in to get to an elite levels. Something that some people can dream of, and that's about it. But to get there is phenomenal. Yeah,
and I had, like I said, I'll probably go into it some, but I had 5 years in the system, and you look back now and you go through the stats. A long career is 2 years. Like a lot of kids don't. Like 50% of kids don't make it. Once they get to that level. So, like I said, you put all your heart and soul into getting to somewhere, and once you achieve it, you want to make sure the most of it. And some kids can perform under that pressure, and some kids can't. I suppose. So.
Certainly a cutthroat industry, isn't it?
So
it's, small amount.
Let's go to 2000 when you're drafted. The Bombers won a flag that year. So you can imagine the team that they had, and I'm actually going to read out the team list.
Oh, here we go.
For the next couple of years.
Benny's done his
so not
homework.
on 2000. We're talking a few years on in 2003, 2004, when you probably played your better seasons, just to give some people the idea of who was around. So
what he was up against.
I'm gonna run through them pretty quick. So we got Mark Johnson. Some of them I'm just going to go with first and last names. McCurry, Henneman, Joe Watson, James Hurd, Sean Wellman, Dean Solomon, Jason Winderlick. That's how it's said, is it? Yep, Winderlick.
Yeah, that's correct.
Dean Solomon. I'll keep going. Ramanaskas, McVeigh, Peveril, Welsh, Cupido, Jason Johnson, Paul Barnard, Matty Lloyd, David Hill, Teddy Richards. Where are we going down the list? Mark Bolton, Joe Mercedes, Scott Lucas, Steve Alessio, Sam Hunt, Dustin Fletcher, Adam McPhee, Jordan Bannister, Marc Bullen, Shane Harvey, Ken Hall, Simon O'Keefe, Dean Rioli, Scott Howard.
Certainly some classic names on there, and there's some household names.
Is that weird hearing all those names again?
Oh, a couple of the names I haven't heard for a long period of time. So,
but that's like sitting back getting drafted in 2000, and I know some of those players would have most likely have been in that club, like 2000 Premiership. Did that add to the nerves of going to a club like that, or the excitement?
No, probably the excitement, I suppose. From memory, I didn't speak to Essendon at all before the draft, leading into the draft, that draft camp.
Yep.
So I didn't speak to any of their talent recruiters. I didn't speak to Adrian Dodoro or anyone like that, I suppose. And I suppose that added to the excitement that you're going to a team that's just come off. I think they lost the one game to the Bulldogs in the year 2000 and bet Melbourne. So. And also getting the opportunity to run and play alongside of some of the greats of the game.
Legends.
You heard, Michael Long was still playing at that stage.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not too sure if you read out Paul Salmon, or he might have come the year.
No,
after.
I've only got the 2003, 2004 list here, but
yeah. So like you played with some fantastic players that are ornaments of the game, I suppose. So Michael Long, as I said to you, like what he's done after football, with the long walk and. His ability to bring people together for the long walk and fight for indigenous community, I suppose. So it's been fantastic. So every time you get an opportunity to go to past players now, initially when I first sort of left the football environment, I didn't really have an interest in going back to them. But once you get a little bit older, and you see people getting back together and networking. And we had one last year, and Ben Rutten got us all together. It was an absolutely really fantastic night. So every time there's one on the calendar, I'm going to make sure I go to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Who's the I shouldn't say who's the biggest name, but who's the most influential footballer you've played with?
Back then, obviously Hurdy was pretty influential. He led by example, so he just worked his backside off. He was a captain of the football club, and he'd do anything for his teammates. So he would, everyone remembers when he got his head caved in. That's the sort of person he was. He'd do that on the training track on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and he also led by example when he went out and he did on the weekends. And his ability to run, like he was just a phenomenal runner. I remember one story we had. I can't remember what pre-season it was, but we had the time trial around the Tan. Not the Tan, sorry. It was the Carlton ground, so Princess Park. And as a time trial, you go there with nerves and you don't know what to expect. Obviously, you want to run your backside off to make sure you do a great time. So we did all that. Obviously, Hurdy won. And about 3 minutes after we did it, everyone's obviously gasped for air. Our fitness advisor at the time, John Quinn, he just said that there's a terrorist attack and we all have to go again. So everyone has to get within, say, for instance, 30 seconds of your time. So obviously we started running again, and there's only one person that got within 30 seconds of their time, and we all know who that is, James Hurd.
The man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, we'll side off to a little side note here that did James Hurd ever take your glory where you should have been praised for something that you didn't? And no one sort of knows about this because do you remember that game?
Oh, of course I do, yeah.
I'm going to try and find the footage. I'm not sure where it is. So
yeah, that's it there.
You'll go for a hunt. So who would you rate at the club at the time when you started as someone who was taking the young guys under their wing to really put their time into that as well as their own footy? We
always had mentors at the footy club, so it was sort of a like for like situation. So, for instance, the as centre half forward would more than likely have a mentor being Scotty Lucas. If it was a full forward, obviously Lloydie. My best mate, who's my best mate in life now, Sam Hunt, he was a full back, so Dustin Fletcher was his mentor. And mine, which is I was a midfielder. Joe Mercedes, he was my mentor. So him, Jace Johnson, those players that played around the ball, similar to me, sort of that in and under contested ball player. So me and Joey still talk now. 25 years later or 20 years later. So
are they hard on the young guys or?
Yeah, they make you earn it. Definitely back then. It's a lot different now. A lot of the kids come into the system now a lot more prepared than what I would. Even though I thought I was prepared. Back then, coming off a premiership, the boys back then probably didn't have their greatest training heads on, I suppose, when you come off a premiership. So you probably relaxed it a little bit. And I come there, and I thought I was fit, but I wasn't fit. So, the kids these days probably come in. A kid these days will come in and win a time trial. Back when Rusty Sidebottom was coming, he'd come in and win it because of an elite runner. Where back then you probably, I couldn't get up and win one, but 3 years into it, I could nearly win a time trial. So you don't realise how hard you have to work until you're actually there. But the kids are a lot more prepared than what we were 20 years ago.
Did you put that down to some of the kids individually pushing harder, or you're talking about the team situation, their training coming through?
Yeah, their training. So the development now. So in the last 10 years, kids have developed from training academies and resources and a lot more than what we ever had. And they get access to dietitians and nutritionists and,
it's changed a lot over time.
You name it, they're doing it. They'll be doing stuff on trampolines and wobble boards and Pilates and running coaches. Where we just played footy two nights a week. Yeah,
it was more on a ability and natural talent and things like that. More so probably back in the earlier days.
Yeah, probably. But the kids, like I said, the kids these days, even for me, I'll go back and when I do look at our games, you look around. You got your, for instance. Mark Johnson, Jason Johnson, David Peveril, Ramanascus, these guys were tall back then in 2000 at 6 foot. Now kids are running around
6'3", 6'4".
6'3", 6'4" mids. Marcus Bontempelli is a 6'3" midfielder. So moving forward, like this year's draft, you got Sam Darcy, who's 204 centimetres, plays like a midfielder. Like the King brothers 3 years ago, they're 205 and they're freaks either end.
Yeah.
Like I'd hate to see what it's going to be like in 10 years' time. Our midfield is probably going to be 2 metres tall.
It's hard to get your head around because you remember watching like local footy, you'd see a guy that was 6'4" would be the ruckman and he couldn't do anything below his knees.
Yeah,
and couldn't run to save his life.
But back then you had the 5'4" Rover. So I think a Rover would
but to think that
6 foot.
size person would be running around in the midfield now just blows your mind. Because when like a lot of us watch this from TV at home, you don't get the perspective of standing next to
a kid these days, like a kid that's only 5'10", he's lightning quick. Like he'd be an indigenous kid that you can't catch.
Yeah.
Back in the early 90s, there's probably not many of them around. So
yeah. All right. Well, I found some footage here, so I want to show. It's on the big screen. So we're in the final 2 minutes of the West Coast Essendon game. I can't remember what year it was. 2004. There it is. It says it up there. Talk us through this, Mark, because not many people could remember what actually happened here, other than what James Hird did. So.
Yeah, well, I was tagging Cousins at the time, and he probably had about 15 in the quarter, so I was under the pump. So we were down. The game, we were up and down all day. It was a terrific game, and Hirdy took the game by the scruff of the neck. I think he had 15 possessions in the last quarter, and we got down to a stoppage down here. Hirdy had the clearance out of the centre bounce, and obviously we're a draw with maybe 5 or so seconds left on the clock. Ball bounced to me, clean, crisp, low handball. Put it onto his breadbasket and he wins the game. So,
and then he goes and hugs a crowd member, which no one remembers the handball.
Yeah, well, a lot of people. It gets asked as a trivia question a fair bit. Actually. Yeah.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, and not everyone gets to be in a Toyota ad, so I made a Toyota ad.
I think he burnt you even on the way back there, didn't he?
Yeah. So we had the Toyota ad. So I don't know if you've had a look at that before, but they talk about me giving the handball in the Toyota ad, and I'm actually starting to do a little bit of business with Toyota, and
nice.
That's one of my little catch cries when I'm trying to get some business. So.
Let's go and I'll try and find that if you guys want to talk. So. James said, what is it? Toyota ad.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it there. Here we go. I forgot about this one.
The legendary moments.
The old Shep footy jumper one.
It's a classic.
A classic footy moment that has it all. And who else could give us all this? Who else but the maestro? Hey, James. It had been a little worse than he had upset an umpire.
Bit of a classic, this. These boys were a bit nuts.
30 minutes and 48 seconds gone in the fourth quarter. Umpire has a ball up at the time. He's waiting for it. There's a tap. He's waiting for it. Out to Hird. Now you kick it. Kick the ball. It's going down towards the ball. Hey, maybe Murphy should have kicked it. I'm not the umpire.
He doesn't look overly impressed there, James Hird, does he? So.
What actually happened? Out to Hird. You Murphy. I guess I'm playing Murphy.
He says Bullen there, does he? Yeah.
He says Bullen a couple of times. So.
Yeah. Like Craig hugs a groundsman. Oh, fantastic. Mark, you mentioned before Indigenous players and Michael Long. There's a few on the list back then. They're obviously a massive, important part of our game and super talented. Who was on the list back then with you?
We had some great players back then. So, obviously, Michael Long, early doors, and one of the greatest Indigenous players to play of all time, in my opinion, Dean Rioli. So,
superstar.
Got along very well with Dean throughout my career. He was very close with Sammy Hunt, who forged a great relationship together. And Dean's done pretty much the same, followed the same path which I have post-footy in coaching community football. So he's done a lot of, in Melbourne, he's done some community footy, obviously back when he's gone up in Darwin. So he's coached and coached some really good successful teams. Another kid that came later in probably 2003, 2004. He ended up playing 150 games. Was Nathan Lovett Murray, who's had a really good presence in regards to his community. So he's actually just started, and I think he's just been accepted onto the board of Victorian Sport or one of those things.
Oh, well.
He's actually he works for St Kilda, I believe, and he was also an ambassador at Brighton Grammar. And he brings a lot of the kids down from the Northern Territory to give them an understanding of Melbourne values and Melbourne life. So he's a big advocate for his people, and he's a really good guy, Nat Rat. So he's actually I think he's having a fight up in Darwin soon.
Really?
To raise some money for some charities, or one of his charities. So
Does he throw him all right?
yeah, he goes well. I think he probably put on a fair bit of weight, Nat Rat, but he's lost a lot of that. I know he's doing a lot of training. I'm following him on social media. So he's a really good guy. He could pack a punch. Don't worry about that.
For those of you who don't know, me and Mark are super big boxing fans.
Yeah.
I've always followed the fights. I remember Michael Long having a fight over, was that in New Zealand, or was it was against the New Zealand rugby, I think it was. So
yeah, I'm not too sure, but I remember when I first turned up at Essendon, you always rate people by how good they're on the speedball, and Longy was by far the best person on the speedball I've ever seen. So he's an amazing boxer.
yeah, okay, awesome. Highlights of how many games did you end up with Essendon? And
44, so 44 senior games, and I'm not too sure how many reserves games I played, but yeah.
first year of reserves, how'd you played, like the first year you were reserves?
Yeah, I played 2 games in my first year I got there, so I debuted against St Kilda. Unfortunately, took a ball at half forward, tried to get around the player, and back then what do you call it, Colonial Stadium back then, or whatever it was called. Anyway, Etihad Stadium, trying to get around the player, sidestepped him, got tackled, and hit my head on the ground. I don't remember much else. So that was a great debut.
Lasted 10 minutes.
Good start.
Yeah, I got 1 handball for the day, and then so I got dropped after that. And then Sheeds brought me back in at some stage later down the track, but played most of my footy in the Essendon VFL that year. Lucky enough to win the VFL Best and Fairest in 2001. And then the following year, played only 2 games because I pretty much started getting some injuries. That was my first time I probably started getting injuries. So, yeah, 2001, VFL Best and Fairest, and then probably didn't have a great year the following year through injuries. And then I decided finally I have to pull my finger out and actually, get fit and do a proper pre-season where you weren't going out and enjoying the summer life in Melbourne. Actually, finally deciding to say, right, enough's enough, get fit, if you want to make it. So
your injuries weren't that bad in the respect that you could overcome and get fit again and get back into it.
Yeah, so I had an ITB release, which was just a knee complaint. I had a right ankle, just like a tendon repair type thing.
Yep.
And that didn't really stop my ability to get fit. But I decided in that year, 2003, that I needed to get proper fit. So me and Hurdy trained together down in East Melbourne throughout the pre-season. And coming back to it, that's when I started I never won a time trial because by that stage you had your Brent Stantons and your absolute freak runners. But the hill sessions and stuff like that, I'd be in the top 1 or 2 the whole time. So, unfortunately, it didn't translate straight into senior football, and I had to wait probably to round 7 or 8 that year, or maybe round 6. And I went and knocked on Sheeds' door. I said, "Listen, what do I need to do?" He said, "Come up to match committee." So I went up to match committee, pleaded my case, told him this is what I'm doing. I'm best on ground in the reserve, blah blah blah. He said, I think from memory, said that go out this week and show us, get some more contested footy or one of those things
in the resis,
in the reserves.
Yep.
And I did that, and then the following week he put me in. I played on Friday night against Port Adelaide, and played really, really well. Got in the top 3 in the best, and then I think I played on Nick Stevens from memory. And then I played pretty much the next 20, probably the next 40 games in a row in the next following 2 years. So 2 finals in 03, some finals in 04, and yeah.
Yeah, picked up a bit of momentum and consistency. And
yeah, well, you get your confidence.
Yeah.
Once you get in. Unfortunately, back then, like early doors, it was a trend that you'd start on the bench for a long period of time, whereas now you get on the bench, you get off the bench in the first 3 or 4 minutes. Back then, I remember sitting on the bench when I played one of my first early goal games, I'd sit on there for nearly 3 quarters before I got on.
Yeah, it's no rotations what it is now.
It was tough, you know. But kids these days get on straight away, which is great. So,
What role did you play when you actually got in there and broke into the seniors? Did you have a certain role, or did you?
Yeah, I had a role. I was sort of. I played in through the midfield and pretty much played on all the guns. So I had the opportunity to do a run with roles with most of the elite AFL footballers for a long period of time. So I played on all the good ones. So your Careys, your Buckleys, Cousins, Rashudos, Peter Bell from memory. Played on him. Like I said, Nick Stevens. So I had to be able to run. Because these guys can cover some serious ground. So
that was a tagging role?
Yeah,
like
a tagging role. So
role.
run with role back then. Spent a bit of time in half forward a few times. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And did you enjoy that tagging role, or was it you're sort of not, as a midfielder, you're not free to really do what you...
Yeah, but if you're a hard worker, you can run both ways and you can get the ball. So primarily the role was to stop the opposition getting the ball, but they'd always take you around the ball. So
yeah. Who was your best runner?
Cousins was the best runner. Him and Peter Bell were the hardest to play on because they'd just run at speed for great distances. Whereas you playing Robert Harvey was very hard to play him because he just wouldn't stop running. When you're playing Cousins might run for 300-400 metres, but then he'd stop and have a blow. Whereas Robert Harvey just go to a stoppage, put his hands on his knees, and then just burst off again and just do that 500 times a game.
You think he's going to take a breath and then he's gone.
Yeah. So and then unfortunately sometimes Sheeds would put me on Rashudo. And Rashudo would just take me to the goal square, and he's like a big bear, so I had to try and play on him. But yeah, I played some. It's a good learning curve, and it was a great opportunity to play on some of the. You talk about the greats of the games; those players that I mentioned are the greats of the games. You know,
they're huge. So I've got another list.
Oh, here we go.
I like this.
Ben and his list.
Yeah, this is
loves
good.
The list.
This paints a clearer picture. So 2003 and 2004. You're running in the centre on some of the best in the comp, so I'm going to read out who came in probably top 10 in the Brownlow each year, and they're pretty much all centre players. So 2003, Bucks, Goods, Rashudo tied for the Brownlow.
Did you ever play on Goodsy?
No. Oh, actually, yeah, I think I would have, actually. Yeah, I would have played him up at, what's that stadium? Not SCG, the other one, out sort of...
ANZ Stadium.
ANZ Stadium, yeah, played on him. I've got my highlight package, actually, where I took Barry Hall on and threw him to the ground. I've got it. I'll show you.
Can you find that?
No, you won't.
You won't find it?
That's on my stuff at home, but definitely took
Yeah, right,
Yeah, it's in your highlights package.
That's fair.
I should have brought it in, actually.
Yeah.
That would have been a good one to show everyone.
Well, you can send that in, and we'll put it up.
Yeah.
I'll keep going through the list. So we got Cousins, Crawford, Wanganeen, Bell, Voss, Hurd. Oh, well, you're not playing against Hurd, but McLeod. So that's 2003.
Did you play on Crawford? What was he like to run with?
Yeah, a real hard runner.
Yeah,
really hard runner.
So McLeod used to cover some ground
I didn't
too.
Play on him. every time I played on, obviously Adelaide playing Rui.
Yeah.
So,
Well, McLeod was more of a back flanker.
Yeah.
Run off that back flank. So.
And we'll go to 2004.
Mm-hmm.
Juddy, Rashudo again, Corns, West, Kirk, Black, Power, Rewalt, Lappin, White's Ruckman, and then you got Treadray. So there's a few mixtures there, forward and stuff like that. But
when you played Brisbane, who'd you run with then?
That was a big team back then, wasn't it?
There's like 4 you could have chosen.
Yeah,
I think I played on Lukey Power back then.
Yep,
he was a star. They had an unbelievable team. But then in 2004, I probably didn't do as many run with roles. I went half back. Did a little bit of work back then. But speaking of that's Scott West, I'd imagine.
Yep.
So Scotty West was my childhood idol. So obviously a Bulldog supporter.
Yep.
And 2003, it would have been round 18, 2003. I played on him as a run with role.
Yep.
And I kicked 2 on him, and we won. And I got a Rising Star award. So it was a bit of a
on your childhood idol.
On my childhood idol, yeah. So
Fantastic.
round 18. So round 18, 2003, I got a Rising Star award.
So how did you go from when you were a young kid? Obviously, your dad was a massive Bulldogs fan as well. Grew up in Footscray. How did you go as a Bulldogs fan, then getting drafted to Essendon, and then having to play against them?
No, you just drop them. You don't worry about your childhood team at that stage. The funny thing is, obviously, once leaving footy, I'm back on the doggies. So my family's a big Bulldog supporting family now, but I really still like enjoying when Essendon Bulldogs play because they're my two top teams, I suppose. So yeah, it wasn't hard to drop them, Simon.
So this is going to sound like a silly question, but this is coming from a couch writer that watches AFL and stuff. Like when you grow up as a kid, you die hard football. So you're following a team, you live and breathe night and day that team, and then you get drafted to a team that's not your team. What happens when you turn up to the first game against your old team that you've lived and breathed your entire life? Was there a point when they go to kick the first goal and you cheered for them, or like accidentally, or you're just so focused on your...
Yeah, you're focused on...
It sounds like a silly question, but I'm sure people think it.
Yeah. No, you're focused on just achieving what you can for the team, I suppose. Like I said, definitely enjoyed the doggies, but then once you get involved in 44 people that are pulling one direction, there's no room.
You live and breathe your own.
Room to support anyone else or give anyone else an inch, I suppose. So it's quite funny that football is like that. But even now, you have a look now, like a lot of the teams now in the pre-season, because they have so many weeks off now, and obviously COVID sort of did what it did, a lot of the teams now are just training together in the pre-season. So all the players are playing, most of them obviously probably connected through their management teams, but I remember watching the Fox Footy the other day, and there's 6 or 7 players training from 6 or 7 different teams, which is unheard of in my time. So.
All right, let's before we get away from AFL football and go to your country stuff. Your coach, obviously at Essendon, was the great Kevin Sheedy. Been around for a long, long time. What was he like?
Yeah, he was good. He didn't know my name for the first 3 years, but anyway. No, he was good. He was an ornament of the game. He, no word of a lie, he called me, he always, because obviously my first name's spelt with a C.
Yeah.
So that, I presumed that my name's Marcus, and I just called myself short for Mark. So that was the year 2003. I won the Rising Star Award, and I had an interview with Channel 10 at that stage, and they come and did a video presentation of me and vice versa, and that same question got asked. So how was Sheeds as a coach? And I said, it's great that he's finally learnt my name. And anyway, long story short, I got dragged into his office the following morning, and he went through me.
No sense of humour?
No sense of humour.
No.
So that wasn't a great, but he kept me in the team. So that was all right.
Did he have any bearing on your coaching career, or?
No, not really, no.
No,
not really, because like I said, he was coming towards his end of his career. When I got there, I think he signed, once we lost in 01, so we lost in 2001 to Brisbane. Now, looking back now, I don't believe he should have got another coaching contract, because, he was going in, 83, nearly 20-something years at that stage, and the game was evolving, and speaking to a lot of players, I think the committee tried to get rid of him, but because of his power and his influence, that didn't eventuate, and then I think he signed a couple more years after that, and that's when Essendon started to deteriorate.
Yeah.
And not to say it was just him, but at the end of the day, the game just evolved past him. All these huffing and puffing and all that sort of stuff sort of went out the window, and tactics come in a lot more to play, and sports performance or elite performance sort of come in, and he probably just needed to evolve, and he probably couldn't. It's not his fault. It's just the way the game sort of trended, and footy trends. Don't get me wrong, he's got one of the best football brains there's ever been, but the game just changed, and probably he probably needed to do a consultancy role more than what a coaching role. So
the biggest highlight of your AFL career, whether that's your highlight or someone else's, that you were a part of that game and you were at that game, or.
Oh, look, it was special getting a Rising Star Award in that round 18 game. But I played in 4 finals. I played in an Anzac Day game. They're always very, very special. I got injured before one of those games one year, which I was upset about. But yeah, probably played Probably the best finals win that we had was over in Fremantle, where Fremantle had their first final for forever, I think, and we won that game, and Hurdy played pretty well. So, but that game, that West Coast game was pretty good to play in, I suppose. But yeah, that was probably my highlights: winning a Rising Star award and playing in 4 finals. And I think I got a couple of votes in that game against Scotty West in the Brownlow. So that's a bit of hang your hat on.
Got a Brownlow vote.
Yeah, got a couple, I think.
Did you ever go to the Brownlow?
Yeah, I went there as a date one time. I didn't get invited to it. Never got invited.
You went as a date.
I went as a date one time.
Yeah, okay.
With Jason Johnson. Didn't last very long because I broke my thumb and I had surgery the morning of the Brownlow, and I got out of surgery, and then after the beers started wearing off, my thumb started throbbing, so I had to leave.
At least you got to go. At least you got to, as a highlight. It's not everyone gets to go to a Brownlow, so... All right, so football, you left AFL, you got delisted. There was trade rumours and stuff. And how is that when your sort of job's up in the air? It's something you live and breathe, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, gee, am I going to get traded here? Or what's your thoughts there?
Oh, look, I got that year, 2003, once the trade came, I got offered a 2-year deal to go to Port Adelaide. And I remember playing out at the National Golf Course. And my power of attorney at the time, which was my manager, Dan Richardson, so he rang me up and said, "Oh, what do you want to do? Do you want to move across the Port?" And at that time, sort of, I had like 2 hours to decide, so just said, "No, Essendon's going to offer me a deal anyway." So I stayed there, did that. And then obviously in 2005, when we started losing, sort of you start knowing when you're not playing senior football that you're going to lose your job. So I never really had any. I went and trained at Richmond, and then I had a small amount of interest at Geelong. But at the end of the day, I turned up to Richmond, and I didn't, blow anyone's mind away with my fitness or anything like that. So you're competing against the next run of players or people that are coming through. And at that stage, I was resigned as knowing that I wasn't going to, I'm 6 foot, I'm a midfielder. Well, there's probably 30 or 40 of them kids coming through that'll get their chance. And so I decided to, after there was no interest, decided that we needed to change, me and Monique, and we decided to go and play over in Adelaide for what turned out to be a short time, but a great time. So went over there and played Sandford footy, which was fantastic.
That was in 2006?
Yeah, I reckon,
Yeah. And that the interest to go to the Sandford was just purely you needed a change. You needed to get away from the Melbourne highlight of the football and everything, and take the wife, and away you went. Well, she wasn't your wife back then, was she?
No, she wasn't that lucky, so... She became my wife, I proposed to her when I was in Adelaide.
Yeah.
So, and then we took her and the dog away and started working for the first time in my life, which was a challenging experience, especially when you're carrying pavers in 45 degree heat.
Yep.
And then you had to go and train, so it was an eye-opener.
So you were landscaping?
Landscape.
What was your first job, by the way?
My first actual job?
First job.
Ever?
Yep.
Oh, I think I worked at Big W for a stack of shelves at one stage.
I don't know how you'd fit all that in.
Yeah, well, we had to do something.
Yeah.
Not that we did much work. I remember me and a few of the boys, all we do was eat the Doritos up on the top of the roof. So yeah, did a little bit of stuff. But yeah, Big W.
Yeah.
I think Big W was my only job. So
Yeah.
Did you go tree lopping at one stage?
I did tree lopping, yeah. So I was an arborist.
That was it when you were 17 still?
17. I was just sort of transitioning into footy. So that was another eye-opener, I suppose.
So over in the Sandford, you were getting on the doing the work and playing the footy at the same time. Like, how did that go from training full time, like AFL, etc.? Obviously, you probably, I'm assuming, did a lot more training at the AFL though. How'd you balance that?
I wouldn't say it's a lot more training. You just have to squeeze more into unfriendly hours. So I was working my first job, so working as a landscape gardener, earning, I think back then, $15 an hour, and then we were sort of doing a lot of industrial stuff, commercial stuff, so like big pathways and big concrete jobs.
You never see the end of it.
2,000 square metres of instant turf, laying all that, and then going to train at night. So but yeah, like everyone's doing it, so you just had to fit it in, I suppose. And the kid, like to be to be fair, it probably made me fitter because I was actively moving all day.
Different kind of fitness
different
too.
kind of
yeah.
fitness.
So how old were you at this stage, so I can keep up with the timeline?
2006. So
20. What's that? 5 years? 23.
So still young fella,
So
really.
young.
still
Like,
pop, mate.
yeah,
But considered old in AFL.
in
terms.
AFL years, yeah, but like in life though, to have a job and be playing footy and doing all that, that's still young as like. So
How long did it last at the Sandful?
I was only there for half a year because the old man, that's when he first started getting crook. So we found out the news sort of, I think we were 10-0 and we had a really good team. Like we recruited really, really well. We got through the first half undefeated, beat everyone. And you had back then in Sandford, you could have 6,000 or 7,000 people in it on the weekend. So it was serious footy. Like they love their footy over there.
Yeah.
Like banners and flags. And it was a really good environment. But Dad got diagnosed with esophagus cancer. So me and Monique decided to come back. And then that year I played sort of half a year because I obviously didn't have a job. Just wanted to help Dad getting to and from his treatment.
Yep.
So I decided to play in the Golden Valley for Shepparton Swans. The
Swannies.
Swans.
Oh, Swans. I remember the phone call. I got a phone call. I was at work one day and Mark rings me and says, Simon, I'm coming home. Put the word out. I felt like a manager at
put the word out.
So it rang a few blokes and then said that he was coming home and, geez, they gobbled him up.
I was going to say, at least I can sit here and be proud to say that you're at I'm a Swannies boy, so to say you're at the Swannies even for a short period of time.
Yeah.
I was either that or playing Metro footy, and I got offered some really good money to play in the Metro, but because Dad was based here,
You're going to travel anyway.
come back and help out where I could. So
Yep. So that was for, half a season or
yeah,
something?
only
And
half
then
a season. So I enjoyed my time at the Swannies. There's some really good people down
Yeah.
there. We had a great team. Got injured late in the year, unfortunately. Broke a little transverse processor in my back, so I didn't probably get to perform as much as what I could have.
Who was coaching that year? Wasn't Warby, was it?
Was Sudsy?
Sudsy.
Yeah, Strop was right.
Yeah.
Jared
Was it
Sullivan. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was a good player.
Him in the ruck, you in the...
He's
in the
the 6'4" or whatever guy we're talking about that you wouldn't be playing in the centre in AFL.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
He's not even that tall nowadays. Like he's
Correct.
Yeah.
He'd be 6'4". 6'4" is not even... He's
No.
6'9" now for a ruckman.
But he'd tower over everyone in the GVL at one
In
point.
that he did,
You
yeah.
know, like,
He was a monster of a man then. So
it's the only person I can compare to when I think of AFL size players.
yeah.
And I just can't picture it in my head, him doing that.
Yeah, I know he doesn't.
You know what I mean?
Didn't
Like-
quite have the movement of a Boston
No,
Pelly or someone.
But anyone that size.
Yeah, that's right. So
Oh, that's crazy. So after that was back to Melbourne, yeah?
Yeah, well, Dad, first round of cancer, Dad bet, so we had to. I had to finally go and get another job for myself. So I was coming out of the 2006 season in 2007. Good friend of mine at the time, I played a lot of footy with at Essendon, Benny Haynes. He secured a job with like a recruitment agency that did sort of labour hire, packaging, forklifts, and it was associated with the club. So we had to go and, for us to have the job, I suppose, we had to go and play for the footy club. And at that stage, you're coming out, wasn't a huge amount of offers other than getting paid well, but there weren't a lot of job offers with it. So I decided to take the job offer and get paid well. So we ended up committing at that stage, and Alan Webb, his name was, who's actually now passed. He gave us a job, gave us a good start in life, working together. I was in sort of recruitment, OH&S, workplace health and safety, and some return to work stuff. Haynes was in sales, and we also had Gary Moorcroft. Remember Gary?
Yep.
He was a superstar person and player. He worked in sales as well, and we all played for a small country town out in the Yarra Valley called Sylvan.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a great part of my life actually.
how long were you there for?
Couple of years. So
How'd you just go there?
yeah, we won 2 flags.
Yeah. Pretty heavily stacked. Pretty heavily stacked club
Yeah,
there with
we
3
did.
ex-AFLers.
Yeah.
Well,
so
actually got more than that, didn't it?
I think
Henneman-
Aaron
Henneman.
came. So Hainesy recruited him. But Gaz had already been there, so he was there a year before us. And I think Hainesy back then, we only played on we played on a ground that wouldn't be much bigger than this round table. And Gaz played in the forward pocket. Hainesy had half forward. I was in the middle, and then Aaron Henneman was centre half back. So we had a pretty good team. I think Gas kicked 150, 160. Like, he was a freak.
4'2".
Hainsey kicked 105 or something like that. But I bet them both in the best and fairest. I'm pretty sure I did.
Speaking of Gary Moorcroft, did you play the game he took that mark of the century?
That was one of my first, second, third games. I remember being I was against the Doggies. I think he stood on Brad Johnson's head.
Johnson's head, yeah.
Yeah, I was on the bench. That was a great mark. Gaz was a freak. Gaz is still playing now at 42 or 3 or 44, but not just playing, like dominating.
Still killing it.
Dominating.
Yep.
And he plays for Bundoora, so I think he just might have retired, but he was a star.
Well, it certainly was a big hanger. Well, how tall is he? He's only about 5'5", isn't he?
Yeah, for that. Yeah, but he broke his hip in that marking contest. He snapped a little bone off.
Really?
Yeah, in his hip.
Well, so he should have. He was up as high as the goalpost just about, so long way to come down. So, all right, so you're out at Sylvan for 2 years. Had enough then?
Well, unfortunately, with the job that we had, Alan was the CEO, and he made some poor business decisions back in 2008. And then, I lost my job, and I was living in Essendon. Work was, obviously, I lost work, and then playing in Sylvan was probably nearly just shy of an hour and a half drive.
Yeah, okay.
So, and obviously we weren't going to get paid. And at that stage, I think Addison, my oldest daughter, was born, so I had to go and fend for myself. And I didn't want to have, moving forward, to play football to work associated with a football club.
Yeah.
So at that stage, I said, right, I'm going to have to go get my own job, which I did, and then end up playing sort of not far from me in the strong ADFL team. So I played for Maribyrnong Park under Brodie Holland.
Ex-Collingwood?
Yeah, ex-Collingwood. He was a fantastic coach, hard. The EFL football back then was really, really good, so enjoyed it. Was that 2009, 10, I think.
Yeah, okay. And how'd you go there?
Yeah, we won 2 more flags.
2 more,
just another lazy 2.
4 years country football, 4 flags.
How many ex-AFL players in that team those 2 years?
No, it's probably only me and me and Brodie at that time. Oh, Benny Haynes come and followed me the year after, but at that time we played against Scotty Lucas, who played for Greenvale. We played Greenvale 2 years in a row. Greenvale undefeated. In the first year, we beat them by about 7 points, and the following year, we beat them probably by the same, like really high-end suburban footy.
Yep.
So, been lucky enough to play in some really good teams.
Am I right in saying the Duck made an appearance for Maribyrnong?
Yeah, he did. So, Cade Carey, which was the Ducks' nephew's friend, like this for association, he was playing with us. It wasn't in the years we won the flag. I think it was in the last year where I think I started getting bad osteitis pubis. But anyway, he played. He came out and played at Maribyrnong Park, and I think we had sort of 5,000 or 6,000 there. And he came out, kicked the check side out of the goal square, and then 2 minutes later tore his calf, and that was the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll stick with your country footy. So we went from Maribyrnong. You were 2 years there or 3 years?
3 years. So 2 premierships in 09, 010, and then 11 I got bad osteitis pubis. So, but we played in a prelim. No, it might have been in a semi. We probably had a bet out of the 3 teams at Maribyrnong Park. The 2011 team was probably the best on paper, but we got knocked out in the first final.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then made the transition back home, mate, back to the local club where it all started.
Yep, had a year up in Kingalton. So I was coming off my OP, but I probably had nearly 18 months out of the game. So I got a full, what they call is 2 tendon releases, full released all the edema, so drilled into your pubic bone and released all the pressure. So that knocked me around for about 18 months. And then that was when I sort of went up and played at Kingalton. I had a fantastic time up there in the bush, and really enjoyed my time up there, and got to play with some great players up there. Tyson Sidebottom, who was a fantastic country footballer, played with him. We didn't bat too deep into September, unfortunately, but we had a good time.
Speaking of your operation, how many ops have you had?
I've been pretty good compared to some footballers. Like I've never had an ACL or anything like that. Was very good through my soft tissues, but I had surgeries on my thumbs. My OP was probably my biggest surgery. ITB, tibial band release on my right knee, and an ankle reconstruction, and then I had my cheekbone caved in, so I got that popped out. That's
I did that one Christmas, didn't I?
No, you didn't, mate.
Here we go.
No.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, do you want to jump? We can jump backwards and forwards here and there from the country to the AFL again, because we're talking about injuries. I want to know, like, how hard is it for most players to endure all of the injuries and still, pull up, play a game? Like, they've got to be real sore all the time, don't they? Like, some of them just to continuously keep playing through injury, and the club obviously probably wants to get them out on the ground too. And
well, back in my time, so you could probably look at now that some like the back, a lot of people were having to get out into the park. A lot of people were having sort of what's the epidurals and stuff like that to get on. Whether you have epidurals or you have not so much epidurals before a game, but you have pain-killing medicine before it. I remember when I had my OP, that's when I started getting it in late 2009. So at the end of the year, I had the surgery, but in 2009 when we won the flag, that's when I had it. So I remember I've still got a photo of I've had two pain-killing injections on both of my groins on the side of the Windy Hill boundary line in like a quarter time at the grand final at Windy Hill, and there's people looking over going, look at that type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I had nothing compared to what some people have.
Yeah.
Like you look at a kid up in Sydney, Johnson. He went through 5 or 6 recos. Menzel at Geelong, he had 4 or 5 knee reconstructions. There's players that have unfortunately go through that their whole career, but I didn't have that issue. The biggest thing I had was my OP, and that put me back for 18 months, but you never really hear about that anymore. I don't know why it is. I think they just do a lot more core strengthening and Pilates type work when the kids are coming through. So, and then you've got your players like a Joel Selwood that bashed in, week out.
Yeah.
Well, how's he get up every week? Well, he's just a tough bastard.
Yeah.
Just does what he's got to do.
And you have some kid that, wouldn't be able to get up from a corky where, Selwood's probably got 20 corkies every week. So, But it is challenging. But they do, like I said, it's a full-time career now. So you've got your myotherapist, you've got your sports scientists, you've got your hot cold recoveries, you've got your nutritionist. So from day dot, so as soon as the players finish from day dot, they're straight into their rehab and their recovery. So that's sports performance, and then anything that sort of adds on from that. Days off, they get time off, and they measure load so much more than what they ever had anymore. Back in our days, you didn't measure anything. You just got up and played. Yeah,
that's probably where I was going back in your time more so, that it was like if you had an injury, it was like, here, take this pill or take this shot and get back out, or you're out, sort of thing. Whereas these days it's managed a lot more.
A lot more managed. You have a look at the concussion protocols now. And back in the day, our guys would have played. I would have went back onto the ground. And then you would have went out and drank 20 stubbies after the game. So that's just the way it was.
With your injuries and how, like, especially when you're out of the game for a certain amount of time, how is the mental health issues? Like, it's obviously a massive thing nowadays. How was it back then?
Oh, mental health was a forbidden word back in the early 2000s. So you wouldn't, like I said, it was forbidden. No one spoke about it. Probably there's definitely people suffering from mental health back then, but it's definitely more prevalent, in the social media era. I remember sort of late when I was getting the bullet from Essendon, the Big Footy, which was a forum that you could go on and people could anonymously go out there and just write whatever they bloody wanted about people. And then you'd go on there and you'd read some of them and it'd make you upset. So you just try to stay away from that. But I'd hate to think what the players go through this day and age with social media and feedback. But in saying that, there's a lot more education and training on it, and there's a lot more protection for them.
A lot more support from the clubs as far as that goes.
And that too. So the do's and the don'ts, what you can and you can't say, and how to handle it. So back then we didn't had any of that training, but it was only sort of coming into it. But like I said, if you mentioned mental health back then, you were laughed at.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it, how important it is nowadays and how much of an issue it is now. That like obviously it's a lot worse with your social media and stuff like that, but it's not saying that it hasn't been around that whole time. No, that's right.
But for the guys that battled through without any help,
must have been tough, especially injuries and
there's a lot of pressure.
And newspaper articles, as you're saying, but and worse now with social media. But
and coaches and people coming over and letting you know if you haven't performed, like the classic sprays that you used to get. Like everyone's been through those. Whereas a lot of coaches these days, they talk about Goodwin. They don't reckon he's ever given players a spray.
Yeah.
You know, whereas you go back to my era, you got Dennis Pagan, Mick Malthouse, Kevin Sheedy.
Yeah. It's pretty famous sprays going on there.
Massive sprays.
Yeah.
Spit and all coming at you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely been a big change, obviously, in the game. So,
certainly. They say Simon Goodwin is the best communicator in the game at the moment. The way he can talk to his players, the relationship he builds with them, and everything. It's certainly a different ball game nowadays. Where your coach was just back when you played, your coach was feared sort of thing, and they'd say what they want. Now it's they say Simon Goodwin's just the best around at what he does. So
it's all in a positive.
Yeah, it's all positive, and it's he communicates.
Not always all positive.
Well.
Like there is times there where they'll put pressure on you, but like it's not. It's not in front of a crowd of people.
It's not demeaning.
Correct,
type
and
sort of thing.
There's not slag getting spat at you. I said, like Clarkson was obviously feared for his sprays, but I think even you look at his coaching now, it's probably mellowed a little bit. But I've always been to praise in public and to punish behind closed doors. So that's what I've always done.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, speaking of coaching, we left Kingupna. We got an offer to go somewhere, and what happened there?
Yeah, so Glenn Allison, a guy that I networked with at Maribyrnong Park, who was one of the financial backers there, just kept in communication with my football career where I went, and then I was driving back to, it might have been after, it would have been pretty close after that Kingupna loss in that final. He asked me to come and meet with him on the Saturday when Marby, because he's still sponsoring Marby, or had, he sponsors 30, 40 clubs, but he was sponsoring Marby at the stage, and he goes, look, I want to have a meeting with you. Can you come and meet with me? So, no worries. So I jumped into his car before the Maribyrnong Park game, because I still had a lot of friends at Maribyrnong Park. They were playing in the final. I was actually going to do the running for him. And he said, listen, I'm going to a good relationship with Mark McGoldrick, and we want to go, not that we're going to leave Maribyrnong Park, but we're going to go work with his close friend at Deer Park, and we want you to coach. What are your thoughts? I said, yeah, look, and I've always wanted to coach. I've had an interest in it, and mate, happy to have a crack. And I'm going to play footy in Melbourne again. I'm not going to travel, so let's go. He goes, you've got my full support. You haven't done it before, but we'll back you in for what you're seeing, and been there for another 7 or 8 years.
What was it like back then? Because they definitely wanted a playing coach. They were really hard club, like they were a good club, and had. But like you, then was there any pressure? Like, did you feel massive amounts of pressure going in? Because was it their coach that left or couldn't get up because of an injury or something like that? Is that right? Or
so the coach that I took his job is one of my best mates now, James Condos. So
really?
He got sacked. So Jimmy, if you're listening, mate, just put that on the record. You were sacked for me as being for a replacement. So they out with the old, in with the new, and
no holds barred there.
Yeah. So Jimmy was a fantastic player. So he was at Deer Park for at least 2 years before I got there. So they got elevated from Division 2 to Division 1, and had some OP issues similar to mine. couldn't perform. And then they offered me. They wanted a playing coach, someone that could handle being on the field and have some really good drives off the field. So Jimmy left, but ended up coming back after a couple of years anyway. So.
Yeah, okay. So give us a little bit of a summary of what you actually achieved at Deer Park.
Yeah, so commenced coaching in 2013 through to 2019, and throughout that period won 7 consecutive premierships.
Unheard of.
So 2013, which was my first year, I really didn't even know what I was doing, but we were 47 points down in the second quarter, got up and won by a point. The following year, that was against Spotswood, who was our main rival at that early parts of that era. We played Spotswood again. The following year, we won by about 70 points, had some fantastic players. The following year after that, played Werribee, won by close to 140 points in the grand final. And then the following year after that, we played Sunshine, and we won by 3 points in the last kick of the game. Had a pretty convincing win in 2016 against Hoppers Crossing. That was pretty convincing. And then we played them again the following year, won by probably the same margin. We had Brendan Favola playing that year. And then the last year was 2019. We were down by 28 points at half-time, 19 points down at 3-quarter time, kicking into a 4-goal breeze, and got up and won by 2 points.
Wow. I remember listening to the first one because I followed your career quite heavily. The first one I remember listening on the radio, and I'm thinking they're 47 points down or whatever it was at half-time. There's no way they're going to do this.
Do you want to turn the radio off?
And I just kept listening, and your brother-in-law Anthony would ring me and then give me another live update as such. On the radio and his live update, they're going to do it. They're actually going to get up and win here. So that's your first year as a coach. Did you do any coaching before that, like any schooling, or did you get taught anything, or just purely on the job? And
no, I did a little bit of coaching, and obviously being involved in football since I was 10 years of age, I sort of understood what it took to win. And back then, in that game particularly, I knew that we always had a really good fitness base. So one of the things I instilled at Deer Park in the colder periods where no one was around, that sort of July sort of period, 4-week block, I called it my fit for finals campaign. So that was where you just do extra work on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and you just made yourself pretty much like a racehorse. You're prepping, you're getting out of the paddock, and you start your training periods, and you always wanted to climax on grand final day, which was the grand final day. So I knew deep down that we obviously we got out to something you didn't prepare for, being down by that far. But I always knew in the back of my mind that we had some great players across the board and players that have been in the situation before. But also we made sure that we never left any stone unturned to make sure that we were the fittest team in the competition. And we eventually chased that score down and overrun them in the end, which was great.
Did you have to make any big radical changes, or you just stuck with your game plan and away you went?
No, in 13, like I said, I was pretty raw in coaching, but I had some really good assistants on the boundary line. Craig Clinic and Craig Hill had also been involved in suburban football, so Premierships at Strathmore and a couple of other EDFL clubs. So we did change things up because we were down by so far. So I think at that time we put Shiloh Smith from half back to half forward. I think he kicked 2 or 3 goals. Heath Ayres was probably the best player in the competition. He went on ball and started getting some really good momentum drives out of the middle of the ground. And then we put from memory, we put the best player, Kwame, who was on ball, down forward because we knew we had to kick a score. So, like I said, we the funny thing was Chris O'Keefe, who was the Spotswood captain coach, he was a terrific player. I kicked the ball out of a stoppage in the final 10 seconds, and it bounced into the goal square, and he grabbed it, and he was under pressure because he was getting tagged, and he rushed it through. So I kicked it in, and he rushed it through, and then the siren went. So it was quite ironic that happened. So.
Now, Ben, if you don't know, the Deer Park used to get criticised a fair bit for their the amount of money that they used to spend on their players. But obviously did legally because they've got a salary cap. But
we never had salary caps in the first 3 years.
oh, didn't you?
No.
Okay, so give us some of the biggest names that you played with, like at Deer Park. So for people that don't know Deer Park, it's only a little suburb town sort of thing out the west side of Melbourne.
Yeah, it is. So the first year, we probably didn't have an enormous amount of ex-AFL players straight out of the AFL, but the following year in 14, and we recruited, obviously we had money and we had a good network, but most of the people that we recruit were associated with people that we had at the club, so there's a network there. So in 2013, Luke Guerra, he played with us, and then the following year, Brent Guerra, obviously finished up league football, so he came and played with us.
2013 Hawke Premiership player.
So he came and played with us. That year, 2014, was a terrific side. We had Brett Thornton that played at Carlton, and then we had Ryan Houlihan played at Carlton, and Ryan Hargrave straight out of the Doggies. So we had about 5 or 6 guys in that team then. So we had a great side then, and things didn't turn out with a few of the guys. A couple of them left from years after that, but then we recruited Favola, so he came and played in 16, I believe, and we obviously won a flag there. And then Shannon Burns was probably the most high-profile player, and me and Burnsy go way back to our Kingupna years.
Local.
Shan's a terrific person. I've got his Bucks coming up in 2 weeks' time, so that should be exciting. But he played 4 years with us, so the good ones I kept, the bad ones, the ones that probably didn't buy in or give as much back to the footy club, because always big on, we look after you, but you don't just turn up, grab your bags, get in your car. You got to come in and you got to put in, and the ones that didn't do that, I showed them the door, and the ones that did do that, the ones that bought into the program, they stayed around.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Some big names in those sides, so but certainly had, like when you say you won 7 in a row, but 4 under 3 points?
3 under 3.
3 under 3, so might have had some big names, but certainly I remember one team you played in the grand final had Jason Cloak or something. He was playing, so there was some big names in some other sides as well.
Yeah, so that first year, the 2013, they had a better team than us.
Yeah,
so Spotswood were better than us on the park and a better team, but we got the job done.
Yeah,
most of the other times, and saying that in our 19, so the last time we played, Altona were a better team than us. We had more. I lost my 2 key forwards before the game. My best midfielder. I had a bloke who did his hammy in the first quarter. We got 3 people sent off in the second half, so we played with 16 people, and we kicked into a 19-goal breeze and we got up.
3 people sent off.
Yeah. I had to change the course of the game to win, so I did that.
Yeah, okay. So roughed a few blokes up, old school style, mate.
Yep.
Yeah.
So every one of those years playing, you're still a playing coach?
No, so I played up until 16, so 2013 to 2016, so it's obviously 4 years, so 17, 18 and 19 I just coached.
For the sideline.
Yep.
What do you reckon the difference is?
I enjoyed coaching more than playing and coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had more of an overview of what
Yep.
you're doing and what you can control.
Yeah.
And the reason why I could have kept playing, don't get me wrong, I could have kept playing, but what I was preaching and what I was performing with wasn't probably adding up. So I can't tell a kid who's coming in, an 18-year-old kid, that you've got to have repetitive efforts at half forward and you've got to run up and down. And when I'm at half forward and I'm not doing that, so I've got to preach, got to do what I'm preaching, and I wasn't doing that. So I thought, right, I'll go and go to the boundary line and see what I could do from the boundary line. So I did that.
What do you think from a club's point of view? Like if you're in charge of a club employing a coach, would you go down the road of a non-playing coach straight up, or you think there's still room for a playing coach?
Oh, there's room for a playing coach, but in this day and age, in community footy, unless you're an absolute bona fide star, and you've got the your backbench worked out, you probably need a coach. And your clubs are putting, I don't know, at the moment, like suburban footy, country footy, you're investing so much money, not just what you're paying your players.
It's a bit more serious these days.
Oh, yeah, it's serious footy because everyone's filtering back through. AFL's coming. AFL go to VFL, VFL go to suburban or country footy. So you're talking about high performance and the resource. You have a look around at Deakin right now. So they've both got standout gyms. They've both got. You work so hard off just to get money in the door, and if you're not putting that resource, what's the point of it? Have a look at playing coaches, and then you don't get the results. Well, why didn't you get a standout coach to do the same thing? I suppose.
Yep.
Your last year you played, you struggled fitness wise, or you think had the game sort of passed you, or you just sort of knew it was time, or.
I knew it was sort of time. Probably, like I said, I could have kept playing, but we had such a good young team, and there was kids that I didn't want to lose to another suburban club because they couldn't get a game. So it's probably 4 or 5 of those kids, and I was proud to say that, right, I'll give my spot up, but you'll also get 3 premierships. So there's 3 or 4 kids that did that, that have come out of our junior program. So you want to reward those guys. They come out of their 16s, 17s, 18s, and then they've played senior football and they've won 3 flags before the age they've turned 21. And if I was going to put my hand up and stop that, well, I didn't think that was the right thing to do, even though I could have, but I didn't do it.
Yep. It sounds like, going back to even like through your AFL career, though, the roles that you played are team roles.
Yeah.
Like, running with someone and all that sort of stuff. It sounds like that's come through later on too, where it's more about the team. Obviously, it's not an individual sport, so there's a few people out there love to play for themselves, but
no, I wasn't one of them. I couldn't take screamers, and I couldn't do. I could just do the good team.
Do the ground.
I was good left and right. I could win it inside. I could run. I could get it outside. I get the scoreboard. But when you come to, you get to 35 years old and you've already played in 7 or 8 flags, we'll give someone else a go.
Yeah.
Very
unselfish.
All up.
Play at Deer Park.
No, at all overall.
11
playing.
Playing and coaching. So playing.
Yeah.
Just playing. Playing and coaching. So take off 2. So 9.
9 flags. Most blokes go through their whole career not winning 1. You've been certainly lucky enough.
If you have arms there, mate, I still had it in that year there. Chiseled, mate.
If you have a look at the bigger photo up on the screen, this was what year was this one?
That's 19.
2019. So that was the last one.
Yeah.
Young Beckham gets a carry on here, but if you go back to every year, there was a kid. One of your kids is in every photo. Is that right?
Oh, there would have been. Yeah. Yep.
So I think Beckham got a couple up there. He was pretty spoilt.
Yeah. Always took photos with the kids. So Chrissy Stewart, our captain, for 7.
That's him.
That's Chrissy Stewart there. He's got 6 kids. And he's won more flags than me. Like, he's a star.
Wow.
Yeah.
So talk about him for a second. What did he do as a footballer? Did he play VFL, AFL, just a good suburban footballer?
He should have played AFL. So he was touted to go. He was touted to get drafted in his draft year. I think he was supposed to go in the first round. He turned up to draft camp and did a really, really poor beep test back then. So we played in flags he played at Maribyrnong Park with us when he comes straight out of sort of probably TAC. I think he played for the Northern Knights or one of those teams. And then for some reason, I don't know what changed his mindset, but he went from not being able to run around, like do one lap, to 4 or 5 years later to be like doing Ironmans and all that sort of stuff. Wow. So now Chrissy's probably 37, 38, or probably 37. Still playing now Premier League and still dominating. Like, he's 6'5", 6'6", and he's an absolute star. Kicks it left on his right, takes pack marks. This freak.
Yeah, okay. Well, while we've got a couple of photos up here, we'll have a look at some comparisons here. So if we look at this one, this is back in...
Ripped.
Loves the physique. Okay, so then we go to... That would have been, what, 03, 04 or something like that.
Early.
And here we go back into Deer Park. And
Ripped.
Well, you're not as ripped there, boy. So
still ripped.
You still got some. You're more tankish there.
It's all right.
You're a bit bigger there.
That won't hurt anyway.
Put on a little bit. Oh, look at this little fella here. Oh, that's the Fev. How good was it to play with Favola? He did bring a good crowd. And
where's a photo of Fev in the team? Is he the size of a house?
Yeah, big. He's a big boy. Good fella, Fev. Saw him on Friday actually. So he's turned his life around, and he's had a great career on and off the football park.
He's not that big when he played for you guys.
He's not as big as you.
He was. Just had to sneak that one in. Yeah. Who's that?
He might have better
Is that him?
hair.
Yeah, that's him.
Have a look at the photo of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the boy in this one, mate.
So, I guess I need to ask, after like a run of 7 premierships or whatever, how do you stay hungry to keep going the next? Like, how do you keep your players hungry? How do you keep yourself hungry? Like, you watch, AFL or something, and you see a team coming through, and you think, I reckon they'll win that because they've had a drought for however long, and you're going to see them get up. But you watch consecutive ones after a couple of years normally, and
well, the question
the next
you
team
asked before in 2000 when Essendon won the flag, and then you asked Mark about that, and he said that they seemed to be a bit lazier on the track. They weren't.
Yeah, that's
as
what I mean. Like like there's another team that's hungrier because they haven't had anything for a while. But to keep doing what you guys have done for so long it's almost unheard of.
No, you just want to do it for 10 minutes after the granny. That's the best part of the year, the best feeling you can get through. So
it's a long season to get there, though, for guys that have been there and done it a few in a row.
Yeah, but it's different moments every year. And when you're a competitor, at the end of the day, if you're not a competitor, there's no point playing. So elder players that I were in charge of knew the expectation, knew what the requirement was. I was always someone that was hard but fair. So I always put forward, family was always first, footy second, and work. Sorry, I always went family, family, work, footy in those orders. And then, but in saying that, there was a period of time where you had to crack in and put everything for footy, so they'd turn around, footy would become first. So in the final series, footy would be number one. Unless there's something exceptional that your family had to be involved in. If you couldn't get to trainings or recoveries during that finals period, and it was a catastrophic something happened with your family, I'd let it go. But if it was just that, hang on, my missus wants to go to, for lunch today, well, that didn't cut it. No. And everyone abided by those rules because I was learning it through the year. I was like, preparing everyone for a racehorse again. So there's times where you have to really put in and show commitment to the cause. And I made sure I had that balance right, and that's why I suppose we got the best out of the groups, because I was still fresh in the game. I knew what worked well, what coaches made players bored of, so I wouldn't do too much of that. Like, I wasn't even doing a hell of a lot of footy, coming off a 50-goal win. I wasn't doing any reviews or anything like that. I just give a short overview of the game, whereas when we won by 2 or 3 points, or we were leading into the finals, we'd start doing some coding work and working through our opposition and our game plans and refining stuff to make sure that we were ready to go. If we played Spotswood in this game, that we knew what the game plan was. If we played Hoppers Crossing in the grand final, that would be a different game plan. Who the key players were, who the people we had to put time into, and vice versa. I did all that at the right times, but players coming off lists or VFL levels don't want to have that week in and week out, because that's when you lose them. And I had that balance right. And when I had to make someone stand tall, I made them stand tall, and I didn't care that if that was my mate or someone I've recruited or whether you played 300 games. If you didn't do what the expectation was, you'd know about it in the right manner.
So you wouldn't give him the old spitty spray at quarter time, or
no? I gave a few. I got a couple here on my phone if you want to look at them. But yeah,
he keeps his favourite moments.
I got a few of them, but you probably wouldn't want to put it on here. So
we won't do that to you.
A few swear words popped out of that one. So
it's just one time the lozenge come out. And I had a sore throat.
I had a question. It says, how do you keep you calm? I'm not going to ask that now.
Well, I would suggest that what you've said is that you 90% of the time you were calm, and it's that 10%. I suppose it's no different being a boss or a manager at work. It's the same sort of scenario. Most times you're cool, calm and collected, and try and work through the scenarios, and then there's the odd occasion you need to let everyone know where they stand.
And emotion probably was involved in my coaching early doors, but then the emotion is a hard thing to control when you're in the heat of the moment. So, but once you're being in it for so many times, you can pull that emotion back, because you don't want to say the wrong thing that'll jeopardise, what you're trying to achieve, I suppose. And emotional footballers, emotional coaches, there's no space for them, in my opinion. But in saying that, to be emotional sometimes get your players going. So that balance, you know what I mean? So it was a hard one. Like every year, in every grand final, I always had a theme. And there might have just been I think from memory, the first year was called squeezing the lemon, so getting everything out of you.
Yeah.
That was just hard like this. And I remember getting up there and everyone hated us, and I might have said something like, squeeze the effing lemon when we won the cup, something like that, like something just stupid. And then the year after was a couple of years after, I can't remember them all, but one was I was right into my cycling, so the Tour de France was on during the winter months, and I'd always watch that, and I always thought these guys are freaks. Yeah. So we'd always have the what they call the Pyrenees stages where you climb the. So we'd have tough games. So we'd have a Pyrenees game. So we'd have 4 or 5 different hill climbs. Yep. So we'd do that through in footy season. If we got through all these games, we might have played first versus second, and we won these 4 games. So after the game, I got right. We were winning quite comfortably playing this game, so I thought I'd something a bit different for the players. I'd go in there and I brought in a stationary bike, like one of those spin bikes.
Spin bike, yeah.
So I went in there before everyone came in. I changed, put my helmet on,
put the lycra
on, and I got in there, man. The boys lost it. I thought I was Cadell Evans. But I just try to change things up a fair bit,
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question. Like, how did your coaching evolve? Like, you go back to the Sheedy days, it's the old school style, and then you talk about Goodwin, it's changed. So how did your coaching change? Like even the 18-man press or the flooding and all that. So how did it change for you, and did it change rapidly, or you had to slowly engage that?
No, I think it sort of just evolved from what you saw on the TV. And I know that when they had the cluster when Clarko was playing in the early parts of probably the middle parts of 2000, I sort of took a little bit of that on board. And you had to coach to what your abilities were. So if I had a great back line, I could set up an 18-man press, or if I had a really good forward line, I'd create a lot of space. And always had sort of my concept and the way I coached or directed people was quirky, but it always worked. So when oppositions would put, back in the day before the zonings come in, where you couldn't stack your back line, so they'd just do that. So they might have, I remember one time we played Albion, they had 22 players behind the ball. So how are we going to score, sort of thing, So bombing the ball in never worked, because you just turn the ball over. So you just have to sort of, press it in, 30-metre entry lead kicks into the forward line, so then you get a shot on goal. So I did that a fair bit and just evolved that. And it wasn't really because you were winning a lot, but in saying that, like, I remember going to 2019 grand final, what I'm going to do. So we've lost to this team twice. Altona have smacked us at home twice. They beat us in the semi-final 2 weeks ago. What are we going to do to win this game? So I obviously driving home an hour from Deer Park every Tuesdays and Thursdays, always just brain think and have epiphanies sometimes. So I went through and always do my risk matrix. So I do a risk assessment on, right, if this is happening, what are we doing, and vice versa. So I'd have sort of 20 points with me coaches, and one of the coaches was in red down the bottom. You're down at halftime. What are you doing? And my risk matrix was that I would go and grab the people that I trust, so my coaches, and about 4 or 5 of my players that I trusted, that I knew that would do whatever it takes to get the job done. So I grabbed Jimmy, my best mate, who was playing at the time, Jackson Barling, who's, if you had them photos up, you'd see him. He looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Daniel Cooper, and Chris Stewart. So Jacko is the best defender I've ever played with, and rated one of the best suburban footballers to play with of all time. I threw him to centre forward. I said, Jacko, you start at centre forward, and you're coming off the line, you're taking the captain out. So
this is in the grand final, or the last final. 2019.
2019. That's what.
At what stage of the game?
At after halftime, we're 28 points down.
This is with the 3 players that spent.
No, that's after this.
Yeah, right. Okay. This is where it started, though.
So he come off the line, yeah. What happened?
He come off the line. Unfortunately, the ball bounced next to him, so we had to try and get the ball. We couldn't, so he sort of went to get the ball, didn't get it. missed him. He come around and then chased him and just went the biggest round home you ever seen. Just whacked him. Didn't get sent off, thank God. And then 2 minutes later, Daniel Cooper, one of the other guys out in the meeting, come through and just closed and knocked this bloke out. He come off, sent off. And then Chris Stewart took a mark. Well, coming too. We're kicking against the wind. Chris Stewart took a contested mark in the goal square. Turned around, just like jumper punched this bloke, sent off. So I lost them 2.
And missed the goal because he
got the goal
reversed,
got turned over. So we lost.
reversed.
We went from having some, I don't know, 20 points down just back to 28. They got like 100 and something metre penalty and they scored. And yeah, so I changed the course of the game. And they're the guys that I trusted to be able to do it. And they did it. And the jobs, I remember the commentators, I've watched that game about 30 times. I haven't watched any of the other ones. But they go, Deer Park need to change the course of the game. They need to do something different, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, so went and did it. And then as I said, as they come out, oh, you can't believe Deer Park's doing this. They go, they're dirty, this. I said, well, can they change the course of the game?
So in what way did it change the course? Like were the guys were the opposition too scared to actually come?
Not scared, but they just lifted their heads all the time because they knew.
Yeah, they knew something was coming.
Yeah, knew something was coming.
Yeah, okay.
Knew something was coming.
Oh, interesting. Going back to old school tactics to actually get the job done.
Well, like I said, I had to think about something that if I didn't do anything,
it would have just got bigger and bigger.
Would have lost, and I did do something, and we won.
I had 2 cousins playing that game, Ben. So
Did you?
yeah, I think I've got another
On
cousin.
different sides of the family, or?
Different sides of the family. So this is the Guthrie side. So it's
Yeah, righto.
I think he was your captain, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
he's a gun.
How good's that, eh?
Oh, on the same team.
Same team.
I thought you were saying against each other.
No, that was his captain, Mark's captain.
So Jack was Jack didn't play for 13 weeks leading into that granny. He just kept doing hammies, and then he stood up in the last quarter and had about 14, 15 touches. Yeah, good effort.
Runs in the family. Those guys got it all. I got nothing.
They got it all. You got
I got nothing.
No comment.
no comment. We're going to go back to talking about Christmases, or?
No, we won't do that.
Actually, I do have one story to ask.
Okay, go for it.
I've heard mention of the name sugar recently, and I have no idea what it means, and I want you to give me the rundown. I know a little bit about Simon, but not everything. So,
Well, Simon used to think that he was pretty anti on the gloves, and he loved his boxing. So
just wind it up for me.
Well, I can't remember the guy's name. Sugar. What's his name?
Sugar Shane Mosley.
Sugar Shane Mosley. He thought he was him, so I called him Sugar.
Stuck.
So we used to play slaps all the time, and I got him a fair few times.
Yeah.
These weren't little slaps, though. These
are serious.
These were
like
full.
Don't worry, I'll wash. A lot of them too.
We were 14 beers deep after this sort of stuff.
Okay, rightio.
They come hard, but we knew where we'd pull up though.
Yeah.
We never got
We
serious
got
or anything.
close.
So. It was quite funny though. Good memories back in those days.
Sugar.
So what are you doing now, Mark? Like obviously footy's been a massive part of your life. You've actually given up the coaching role. Obviously COVID hit and sort of changed the whole course of everything, which probably made you sit back and take notice of everything. And so what are you doing now other than...
I am that thing right behind Benny. That's a taxi, and that's what I do on a Saturday, take my kids around to sport.
He's a taxi.
I was going to say you started Uber driving.
Yeah.
What do you do? Like obviously you had to work obviously while you're playing suburban football and stuff, but so I mentioned at the intro that forged a very successful career in HR. So what were you doing there?
Yeah, so I was up until probably 6 weeks ago, I worked for the Hardwick family. So if you cast your minds back a bit earlier in the podcast, we spoke about Sylvan. So I was in recruitment then, and I ended up working for a company, family-owned business in Kyneton, Victoria, which is a large meat processing facility. And I ran all the human resources and OH&S, so up to 500 people we were employing at any one time for 13 or 14 years. Sorry, 12 or 13 years.
How many people?
Up to 500. So big company.
Wow.
You complain about 20.
Wow.
Yeah, big company. So we had some great people around us. The owners were terrific people. Put me heart and soul in that for 13 years, and they supported my football, which was great. But recently, the boys have decided to sell the business, which sold recently to an international company. And now I am working in international recruitment. So with the post-pandemic, helping businesses alike sort of bounce back from the COVID, the skills shortage. So any people out there listening that need some great overseas workers that can help fill the void of their skills shortage, feel free to yell out, and we'll get the details at the end of this podcast.
It's not a bad little plug, so that's pretty
bad.
good. Pretty good. So, all right. So we've covered a fair bit, Mark, of your life. What's a standout for you in your whole life? Like, what's your most proudest moment?
Oh, it's no doubt my proudest achievement is being a father, being a husband. So I've got a terrific family, a great network of people, friends and family, and you'd probably only realise that when you get to your grand finals and your footballs and you're standing there when you're raising the cup or you're singing the song, and then you look around you and you speak about the people that have supported you. So my wife's a pretty strong person to put up with me for so many years. I was a rat bag for a fairly long period of time, but I sort of changed my ways, which I needed to, and she supported me for my football career. So very supportive of what she's been able to support me with, being my football or my working career, raising 4 kids on her own. So Monique has never had any support. Both of her mother and my mother have lived in Shepparton for that whole period of time. So all these wives and girlfriends that sulk and whinge about sort of how hard things could be, just put yourself in her shoes. So she did it growing 4 kids with 2 years in between. So and me being out of the house probably a fairly long fairly long charge. So you're looking at pre-season, out of the house Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, Saturdays, and then in season Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. You're right, pretty much Saturday off completely, because you're basically up, your breakfast, and you're out of there, and then you don't get home till sort of 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So I did that for 20 years. So
yeah,
so
this
she's
is the whole life of the kids so far.
The kids, so. No, but I really appreciate what my family and everyone supported me. Not only my immediate family, but everyone. When you get into those moments of your life, you hear from people that support you and want you to succeed, I suppose. So anyone that has helped in my career, I'm greatly appreciated for.
Yeah, it's certainly. You can't do it on your own.
Well, you certainly can't do it on your own. You need that support, and yeah, that's. I'm glad to hear that you've got that support at home and everything like that. So, 4 kids is a bit of a handful, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Definitely is.
And you got 3 girls, mate.
You had to have another shot at the stumps to get another one. So
Had to get a boy.
Yeah. So no, look, the girls are fantastic. All of them are fantastic. I don't have any favourites. So
well, I can tell you that there's 4 girls and 1 boy here, and the boy's the hardest one. And you'll have a good nickname, because mine's nicknamed Shadow.
All right.
Yeah, because everywhere I go, he's right there.
Yeah.
And the girls hang shit on him all the time. Where's Shadow? So you'll have the same problem already, I reckon.
Yeah. No, he's just a sports fanatic. The girls, hopefully the girls, Addison's going to high school next year, so that's going to be another challenge, because she'll be going 25 minutes one way where the kids are only across the road type of thing. So anyway, we'll see how we go.
Yeah. Any of the girls thinking of football?
Not at this stage, thank God, because I don't want them playing football. But in saying that, not that I don't want them to play football. I think Macy definitely will, because she's built for football. But basketball seemed to be the sport. But netball, Addison is very good at netball. All 3 of them are very good at netball, actually. Monique coaches netball. But you just want them to be fit and healthy. Don't care what path they choose. I don't really care what they choose, as long as they're fit, they're healthy, and they don't make poor choices, because choices in life. My biggest thing is making sure that me and Monique didn't go to uni or anything like that, so we want to make sure that these girls do. If they don't have a career path to follow, then they put themselves into an environment where they can build a career from an early age, and that's what we want them to achieve. As long as they do that, and we support that and give them a good environment to do that, well, then I think we've done our job, like we all have.
Yeah,
for sure.
We didn't mention before, but you actually did a little bit of a stint at the girls' league and the women's AFL. What was that like?
Yeah, it was interesting. So I enjoyed it. Definitely enjoyed it. Like, that was probably coming off playing football through the whole winter. I pretty much did football for nearly 18 months in a row. So it was when we first started. So it was pretty hard to go back because I've never coached girls before in my life, and my kids were only kids, so you didn't have much time.
Yep.
So the philosophy of the senior coach was to get some really good community footballers around them, and which he did. So I think we probably we definitely enjoyed our time, but it was very challenging because the skill set from going from community senior football to going to girls that a lot of them girls at that stage didn't have the development league coming up behind them, so they probably learnt from what they saw. So the challenging aspects of we're going from being successful footballers as a community level to going back to teaching the girls to come up to a standard pretty quickly was probably a little bit challenging, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll definitely get involved in. If Addison or Macy or Jada decide to play football, I'll certainly get involved again. Is it
Like, obviously that was at an AFL level. Yes, it was. I think it was the first year, wasn't it, that AFLW came in? Did you have any, aspirations to go and coach at an AFL level, like a men's league as such? Or?
Oh yeah, well that was the reason I did it. So I just wanted to take a different avenue to get into. Obviously, not having to go down the VFL train, I suppose, because I could get paid. Obviously, having 4 kids, you still got to, that's a reason. Most of the reason not an old reason, but obviously part of the reason why I did it to help, to help us go on a holiday for, rather than just getting through the the day to day running of the family. But to not go down the VFL track, to go through the AFL, be involved in an environment, the doggies, which I supported. Obviously, I was a doggy supporter, and then probably try and go through that program. But at the time, you weighed up the sort of balance sheet, I suppose, and it wasn't really adding up to me. So I just went back and continued with my community footy. And I've had some offers to go and coach in the VFL or the under-18s, but until the kids get a bit older, I'll just keep doing what we do and drive the taxi.
Yeah. So the coaching's sort of on the back burner at the moment.
At the moment, it is, because I'm obviously focusing on kicking this new career off pretty hard. So I want to put all my eggs into that basket. I think there's a massive opportunity there.
What was that career again, you said? What?
International recruitment.
Yeah.
Just another plug.
Oh, ASM, Australian Skill Migration. 0404 115 824.
Might as well do it properly.
So I'll focus on that. But I definitely will get involved in football again, but probably not until a couple of years. I got offered some jobs after my Deer Park. It just didn't feel right, so I didn't end up pursuing it. Yeah,
cool. All right. Well, you've been pretty generous with your time, so we appreciate that very much. So, we've
100%.
I've probably got another couple of little questions to ask you, so we could probably finish off with this. So, what was the first car you ever bought?
Nissan Pulsar. Sickness, I used to call it. I brought it off you, I reckon.
I think you did, yeah.
Did you own a Nissan Pulsar?
No, I sold it to him from the car yard.
Yeah, right.
So
Yep, right.
A little red one.
Yep. I know, my car, so me and Sammy, my car was called Sickness and his was called Bluey. A little blue Falcon.
All right, what's your favourite food?
Steak. Medium rare, mushroom sauce.
Chips or salad?
Either or, not stressed.
Doesn't
Don't
matter.
care as long as the steak's on the plate.
Pretty handy if you work at a meat place, isn't it? That you can get some
MSA, Cube roll, thank you very much.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, all right, if you could invite 3 people, living or dead, who would it be?
Invite
them to a dinner. Who would it be?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I suppose he could come.
Cristiano Ronaldo. Greatest soccer players ever played. I'm not too sure who else. Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods.
That'd be interesting. And we might get who's an actor or something.
You said dead or alive, didn't you?
Yeah, just
I've never really thought of that question. I probably should a bit more than what I did. So I'll get back to you. Pass.
Yeah.
Pass. I'd probably put someone like Muhammad Ali. Yeah. Someone like that would be interesting to actually get around the table.
Actually, Mike Tyson could have it at a...
Ooh.
He'd be good.
You need an interpreter, though.
Yeah, he's got better. He could sit there and...
he only smokes $40,000 worth of marijuana a month now.
Is that all? $40,000 a month. It's not bad. He does all his podcasts and he just woofs on all day long, so that's pretty good. All right, Mark, thank you very much for joining me and Ben on Two Blokes from Down Under. We really appreciate it. Thanks for your time, mate, and all the best for the future.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and really appreciate your time and anything to help out, and go ASM.
Go ASM. We'll have to drop that at the end of the video.
ASM. Yeah, there we go.
Australian Skill Migration.
Unbelievable. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on Two Blokes from Down Under. We much appreciate it, and we'll see you next episode.
Yeah, show him I can still rap, though. Now I'm in the game, I was on the bench. First I was renting, now I'm collecting rent. Run it up. First it with the Beamer, now I want the Benz. Spending all the bag like, here I go again.